there's no way we're gonna do another 2-hour podcast.
I agree.
That just can't happen. I mean, I love talking with you, man, but we got to keep it shorter. You cool with that?
I'm cool with that, man. I'm cool with that.
All right.
I know I'm a chatter. I know I'm a chatter.
Yes, you're such an enthusiastic being. But lovingly, you love to talk, which is why I think you're perfect for this little
Yeah.
experience that we all know as the Snapback Podcast. So, welcome. Welcome on in, everyone. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. Of course, once again, joined with the one, the only, the bearded DefaultDan. Wow, it's been a week.
I know. So much has happened this week, even just from Monday to today. Lots to go over, man.
Yeah, dude. We talked only 2 nights ago, and we're recording this a day earlier than we normally would. But this is a week where we don't have updates coming out on Thursday, and this mega update dropped yesterday.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to talk about, I'm going to say primarily this and everything that's happened in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Without it taking 48 hours, ideally, for the listener's perspective, because, man, I was editing last night, 2 nights ago, that 2-hour podcast, and then waiting for the captions for the YouTube video version of it, and the rendering, and the rendering, and the rendering. It was like, oh, man. We're not making that mistake again. We're going to keep the episodes shorter, I promise, and especially as we start moving to the newer format, which will be a little bit more rapid fire. I think it's going to be it'll be a good thing for not just us, but also our listeners, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're just going to hop right into it. The main feature of the day, of course, is talking about the patch notes. All the patch notes that dropped, the changes. We finally learned what was happening with Shuri. I know you've got opinions. I know I've got opinions. I've put out my own video from the live reaction, reading it when it dropped on Twitch. And now I just want to kind of talk with you about some of the big ones, because everybody has a pretty good idea now of what has happened. I think the big thing to look at is what's going to happen next because of it. So that's where I think it's going to get a little interesting for us. So I'm going to just kind of scroll that right down here and then talk about, okay, first off, with the token shop, I got to say, I love this new layout with the 3 little locations. Like, I absolutely love this new layout. I think it's very sleek, very professional. Like, it just is well organized. It's simple. Like, nothing
Absolutely. I mean,
fancy needed.
Well, and the thing is, like, prior to this, right, there was always kind of these annoyances with the token shop. So they've resolved these. So there's 2 big annoyances we've always had, which is one, either you didn't get a lot of the ultimate variants coming up, or you got a bunch of them coming up. Like, I remember there was one time where I'm waiting on a card and it just kept showing me the ultimate variants. And, like, here's the thing, I'm not spending my tokens on them. Now, I know there's other people out there that want to, because they're like, hey, all these cards will drop. I don't want to spend my tokens on those, but these art, the variant will always be there and only be there. So they spend their tokens on them. But, like, for me, it was more of an annoyance that it was always in there. So I'm glad that they pulled that out. And then the second one was the fact that, like, the new card, right? Like, the new card pops up, and every Tuesday you go on Twitter and it would just be, that one streamer has it, everybody else didn't get it, right? Or that content creator got it and nobody else did. And it was always this annoyance from, the creator's perspective, because one, I can't get it. I can't be the first with a video or whatever. But yeah, they solved it. They solved both of these by putting them in their own, like, carousel, where you still have all 3 of them doing. And of course, the last one being all the other cards that you're still missing, going through your
series 4s and 5s.
5.
Like, it's just well thought out. It's clean. It's simple. We wanted it separated. I don't feel like the shop is now a waste anymore. If I'm actually farming a series 4 or a 5, I'm not going to be waiting a week and a half. I could be waiting 2 days. So I'm very happy with that.
Absolutely.
The series drops, of course, happened. Stature, Ghost, MODOK dropped down to 4. Shuri, Bast, Valk, Super Skrull, Black Panther all dropped down to 3. I think that the series 3 list, now consisting of Shuri, Bast, and Valk in particular, is going to be very strong, and you're going to see a lot more of it in ladder now, because you get 1 free card per month. So that'll happen in 2 weeks. plus, I mean, all 5 of these cards, in my opinion, all have homes. And pretty, like, at least B tier decks, at least, for every single one of those cards. So this is a good group, and you're going to see this in that mid-ladder area pretty heavily. Now, Shuri, we'll come back to. But there is one little thing I wanted to talk about just above it in the listing, which is the VFX and the art. That took me by surprise when they just said, oh, little updates. And then the whole game board changed with that background where it's like brighter. Do you like it? Because I don't know how I feel about it.
So I think the behind the rock looks cool. I don't necessarily like the rock in the game board. And the reason being, like, I feel like there was, it's weird to say, but I feel like there was more detail in the old one. And the new one just feels more 3D, right? Like, so I like the 3D aspect of it, but like, I don't know, now it feels a little weird, like it doesn't belong as much as the old one did.
I can tell you exactly why, because I sat there, you know, after stream that first day when I did the update, I'm sitting there going, why don't I like this? What looks wrong about it? And I figured out exactly what it is. It's, if you look in the upper corners and the bottom corners where you have the player icons, the retreat buttons, etc., those icons are so flat in comparison. It doesn't look, there's no shadow, there's no depth difference. It looks like a streamer overlay in the game. It's, I know it's nitpicky, but given the amount of detail they put into the background, because I agree, it's awesome. I think it's a little bright, which is why you can now see this very clear, like, line in, and there's no depth contrast. Like, it needs a little bit of 3D effect in there just to give it that separation from the background. Because right now it literally just looks like a streamer overlay. And that's why I don't like it, because as easy as it is now to, you know, cut out the masks and make it look like super perfect and sleek and no guesswork. It's also really obvious, especially in the top, to see how disconnected the cube icon in the dead center is from everything else. The layer, something about the layering is just very disjointed. But overall, a lot of the little graphics, like there's now in not Atlantis, what's it called, the one land where you get +5 if there's only one card here.
That is Atlantis.
Is it Atlantis? That's what it's called?
No,
Atlantis?
Atlantis.
It's something world. I don't know.
Is Atlantis the one that doesn't reveal that turn?
No, that's either way. My point is they added a VFX graphic for it, where now it's like this water spiral behind it. If it is the only card in there, like that little detail, I liked. And I'm seeing a lot more of these. It is called Atlantis, right? Okay.
Yeah, because of Namor, because it's the same ability.
Gotcha. But like that kind of stuff, I appreciate. You know, it just continues to add depth to the game, unlike the what we'll call the overlay. Little updates. I have not personally tested the whole tap and look at the card back thing yet. I've seen it on streams already though, but that's nice at least because they have a lot of detail in there. But the infinite rank matchmaking, are you liking it or not liking it? Because I'm as much as we've complained about it, I'm already hearing mixed reviews.
So when this was announced and when the patch notes dropped and I looked at it, I said, here's the thing. It's good and it's bad. It's good because you don't have the feel bad of the person with the infinite card backs beating you for 8 cubes, right? Like that was a total feel bad. Like, why, you're already infinite, why not give the cubes? But on the other hand, now we're in a world where everybody's thirsty. Everybody's trying to get to infinite. So your competition when you get to the 90s is going to be more difficult, especially when you're in 80s to 90s. And I assume with matchmaking, you're going up against 80s and 90s. So they're not bad players. They're going to be good players. And then there's still the complaint about bots. And I imagine with the fewer players you're going to see, because you're not seeing infinite players. So the longer the season goes on, I think you'll have fewer people in the 90s, because I think once you get to like the last week of the season, there's all the people that have already just accepted the 70s and 80s or whatever. So I'm wondering what that bot matchup's going to look like when they don't have all of those infinite players to match you with. And again, I haven't got to infinite yet, so I don't know what that even feels like on the other side of infinite, right? Because they may be hitting a bunch of bots. So.
In a way, it's almost like they just put a bigger bouncer at the door for infinite and then made the club inside way better. Because once you're on the other side of that door, that threshold that you need to cross, it's people who just, it's all the people, hey, laissez-faire. If you wanna go ahead and, you know, have fun and be competitive, you do you. None of us care, and nor should we care. If you want to try to climb to 150, have a great time. Go ahead, try hard. That's cool. But otherwise, it is what it is. But I agree.
I think that'll change.
It's tougher. It's tougher.
Yeah, and I think that'll change pretty soon when they add the whole infinite rank climbing, right? Like it's like the bragging rights once you get to infinite. So it'll be interesting to see what that feels like when it's not just go up to infinite and have fun, right? And for some people, it still will be. But for a lot of people, it's going to be that bragging rights once you get over infinite. So I am curious what that's going to feel like in a month or so or whenever they roll that out. But right now, I would agree with you. It feels a little weird because I do feel like the competition is a little bit harder once you're in the 90s and stuff. There's not as many free cubes floating around like there were.
One thing as a content creator I noticed already in day 2, because I've been doing a lot of playing today. I streamed for 4 or 5 hours, and then I continued to play because I'm doing a Jeff the Baby Landshark deck climb right now, and I'm at 10 hours of gameplay, and I'm gonna hit that threshold of I'm gonna stop earning season pass XP throughout the remainder of the day. I didn't think I was actually going to hit that, and it's day 2. And granted, I've been playing a lot today,
but that's per day, right? That's 10 hours per day.
It's per day, but if you've got nothing better to do with your time, like the full-time guys like us sometimes, I get it, but it's to help prevent bot farming from the Agatha peoples that still exist. So one day, I know it's only one day, but I don't like it just for this one day. Otherwise, I love it all the time. And then the collection level was raised up, the track level, the maximum level. It was like 22,000 something, and now it's like in the 60s, I think, or something crazy. I don't know what it is, but it's way up there. Somebody posted a number the other night. I was like, oh, that's like enormous. Before we start talking balance patches, anything else you want to quickly touch here on the quick patch highlights, or should we just dive into the cards?
No, I was just looking at what my average time was this week, and my average time has been, well, I only play on my computer when I'm streaming, so take that out. And I think I streamed maybe an hour on Monday because we had our 4-hour podcast.
It's only 2.
So my average is under an hour a day. So
gotcha.
Definitely, I feel like last season hit pretty hard with just the frustration of it. But I mean, like we saw, I'm already 97, so hopefully closing in pretty soon on Infinite there. As far as balance, as far as rest of the patch notes before we get to card updates, I mean, again, I love all the little things they're doing, all the adjustments to cards, as far as like the visual effects and stuff, like you mentioned, locations, and again, those drops I think are great. I think all those cards that are dropping are huge cards. I think you're going to see an uptick in a card like Valkyrie. So again, Valkyrie running really good with your Dark Hawk and your Dino decks, which a lot of people are kind of gravitating towards right now. The Shuri drop is good because, again, we're going to talk about the Shuri change in a minute, but the deck's not dead. So it is good that, Shuri is coming down. So now the average free-to-play player can potentially, get her if they don't already have her. And Bast. I'm not a huge fan of Bast in general, but Bast is actually being a really big card now with like your monkey decks, right? So like with monkey coming down, Bishop, all those cards, Bast is making a big comeback. So like you mentioned before, loving all the cards that dropped here. As far as the other ones, 5 to 4, meh, meh. Stature
Meh,
seems to be okay
just
in
meh.
some decks, but the other three, just kind of, I've got them all and I barely use them, so I'll just kind of leave it as that.
Yeah, I can't wait to test around with stature. There's a couple of good
Mhm.
decks out there, but I don't think, keyword, I don't think I'm in a rush. I don't think I'm in a rush.
Yeah.
All right. So let's head to the big one. Let's head to the big topic. We finally found out what it was with Shuri. And I think it was your prediction from a couple episodes ago that it was going to be
Yeah.
exactly what it is. If you play your next card here, double
Yeah.
its power.
Yeah. Mm. It's so like for me, it's one of those where like I feel like this is probably their safest nerf to Shuri, right? So one of the best nerfs I think they could have done was um the last card. I think was probably the best way of handling her, and then making her like a 3-drop or something like that
Yeah.
instead of a 4. But that's a big change, right? Like that's one of those where like you don't really know what's going to happen when you do that. So I'm okay with it, and here's the reason why I'm okay with this change. Because it leaves the deck intact, so you can still turn 2 armor, Shuri into Red Skull in that location and still get that. But the difference here is normally the way you would play it is you would have Cosmo, and then you would put
Right.
Red Skull behind your Cosmo, and then you would have your armor on your Shuri lane. So this opens up the fact that now there's no way to do Cosmo to protect one of your pieces. Because if Cosmo's down, Shuri doesn't work. And if Cosmo's down and you try to put Taskmaster over there, he doesn't work. So this is the part where I am okay with this change, because the deck is still just as strong, because if they don't have an answer to Taskmaster or they don't have their priorities right, then you're still going to be able to do Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster. So again, I like the change. I think the change is going to bring the deck down where it needs to be. And it's still going to be a good deck, but it's not going to be as dominant as it was. And again,
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen a Shuri deck in a couple days now, so I don't know.
So I've seen a few, not nowhere near close to as many, nowhere near close. But you know who really loves that going up against that deck right now? Professor X. Because I know the second you play Shuri, exactly where your next card is going to go. And I Professor X somewhere else, and now you're pigeonholed. And typically, with the way I've been steering my decks the last couple of days, I leave you with priority up to a certain point, and then I swing that back over and turn 3, and then life is good. And then, so it's not as big of a threat as it was. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
As of right now, I'm okay with it, and we'll leave it at that. By the way, this is also really good for Galactus. Leech.
Yeah. So Leech finally getting the the nerf stick. He needed it. We've talked about it for a while. It's not. So here's the thing. It's not the nerf I wanted. I don't think it's the best way to nerf him.
Not my nerf.
Yeah. Well, again, I still think, just like we talked on Monday, I really think it should say the next turn those cards are leached. However they want to word that, it really should be wherever he gets played, the next turn they're nerfed. In this case, there's pros and cons to it. Now that I've seen him, I've interacted with him, and I know how he works, there's pros and cons to it. But essentially, if you get him out early on Lockjaw.
Wait. You got people that aren't looking at you. They don't know what the hell it was. I thought you were going to walk into it. It's a podcast first, video second.
Yes.
So the new Leech says that it's still a 5/3, and it is immediately at the start of turn 6, remove all abilities from cards in your opponent's hand.
I was about to say, when you get him off of a Lockjaw, he reads blah 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 blah, but it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
So the way, again, the way he's going to work now is if you do Lockjaw on 3, you throw some stones in there because you're still playing the Thanos deck. Leech is going to come out on 4. He's going to hit you, but he doesn't do anything because his ability doesn't actually trigger until turn 6. So on turn 6, the start of turn 6, he's going to leech all the cards in your hand. And so it's going to shut down your turn 6. It's the way he was built, the way he was intended of being a 5-drop that stops your turn 6. But here's the thing, on turn 7. So if you still have limbo, they are still leeched on turn 7. It doesn't go away. So correct. That's another one of those things where people are reading it, they weren't sure about it, experienced that in the game. So it's not like they come unleashed. It's just saying at 6, your hand's getting leeched just like normal. So it does affect turn 6 and 7 if there's a turn 7. So I think he's fine. I think this is probably the upgrade. I think the problem with him now is I think he should be a 4-drop. People are going to disagree with that, but I feel like now I'm probably not playing Leech anymore. Like, I know there's so many things you can do on turn 5. I don't think 3 power on turn 5 is as strong compared to like a Sandman, right? A Sandman's a 5/5 and he's going to make you only play 1 card compared to like, that's what Leech does in general. Like he destroys your big cards to where you're only playing like 1, whatever your biggest card is, right? The biggest power you can put down is probably what you're playing. So he either needs to go up to a 5/5 or he needs to come down to like a 4. I would not bring him to a 3 because then you're going to have him in a Surfer deck. It's going to be too much. And anything below 3 is just crazy. So I would be okay with a 4. You still have a Zabu to get him out early potentially, but like a 4 maybe, or you got to pump up his power a little bit. I feel like outside of the Thanos deck, he's not usable anymore in a lot of decks.
I am surprised that you didn't mention the biggest change in Leech.
And that is?
It's no longer on reveal.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. It's
you
just
can
a
no
static
longer
ability
Cosmo.
That can't be.
Yeah. You can't Cosmo him. He cannot be stopped now, no matter when he comes out. And a lot of people miss this.
Yeah,
that's why I put it up on the screen in the YouTube video, because it is not on reveal anymore. So even if you did have Cosmo, have the 2 dogs drop at the same time, Cosmo into the same lane as Lockjaw, it doesn't matter. Leech will still happen for at the beginning of turn 6. And that to me still is what keeps him viable. If it was otherwise, if it was still an on reveal at this with this effect somehow, no, I don't think it would be anywhere close to viable, and it would have completely nerfed the card completely.
Yeah.
But now, no matter how you get him out, Lockjaw or not, it's happening no matter what. You're gonna remove your abilities no matter what you do. Just end of story. That's what it is. So that's a big subtle change, and I know that it's healthy for the game. I agree with what the devs have said about that we need that kind of card in some way, shape, or form. It just still sucks to get leeched. It just there's no other way around it. It just still sucks to get leeched.
I mean, it's still detrimental of a card, just like you have other cards like Wave when you're playing a multi-drop deck and things like that. So it's still going to be a viable card. I just feel like it wouldn't surprise me once we get to the OTA changes if eventually he gets like 1 power or something, something like that. So we'll see.
I agree with that. Speaking of Lockjaw, he also finally got touched up a bit. And I think you've said similarly to this too, where now it's just it's once a turn. Can only play into the Lockjaw lane, into Lockjaw specifically, once a turn. That's it.
Yeah. And that's what needed. Lockjaw is not a super broken card, right? He's a Jubilee, he's a whatever. Like, it's just one of those things where the reason why he felt broken was turn 3 Lockjaw originally, turn 3 Lockjaw plus 3 free stones. And then even after the the Quinjet nerf, it was still turn 3 Lockjaw, turn 4 3 stones. So like it was just, it felt really bad when somebody just all of a sudden went from no power to 30 power in a lane and there was nothing you could do about it. So
Yep.
I like this change.
Yeah, it was needed. They didn't put the good boy down. They just told him
Right.
to go take a nap.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I'm okay with it. Like you said, it was needed. I'm indifferent. You know, it is
Here's
what it
the other
is.
thing. Here's the other thing. So again, being in the Marvel lore and things like that, Lockjaw gets tired when he's teleporting. So it's good that they're, I mean, I don't know if that was intentional, but that
Yeah.
is one of the things of Lockjaw. So like, I think it's good to kind of do that. And then just, even if they didn't know, just say that. Be like, that's what
Just to
happens.
give that homage. Just tip of the
Yeah.
hat there. Chavez. America Chavez. I didn't, when I first saw the name, I started to freak out. And then I scrolled down further and I knew exactly why they were doing that.
Yeah. And Chavez has gotten this change a couple times now, like variations on this change. So, you guys that are listening in on the podcast and things like that, essentially what they're saying is Chavez will always be your bottom card, because what happens, I'm going to explain it for anybody that doesn't know what happens to Chavez. So if she's in your deck originally, if she's in your deck and you start drawing, she'll eventually be your top card of your deck. But because you can't draw her until turn 6, it draws the card underneath her. So if you were to start a game, your deck is randomly shuffled and she is right on top, she is always your top card. And a while back, for some reason, she was always your top card. So they've already had to change her once, because it was a time where every time you Yondu'd, every time you did your, a card to get something off the top, it was always Chavez. So then they randomly put her in the deck, and then they ran into the same issue. Now she will always be the bottom card of your deck. So before we get to the point of why, one other card to think about now is Cable. So Cable always draws the bottom card of your opponent's deck. So this is one of those things where now your Cable, if they're playing Chavez, you can like almost guarantee your own Chavez in about, probably at this point, maybe 40% of your matchups. It used to be like 90% of your matchups, you would have always gotten a Chavez. Now she's a little less used, but yeah. So I'll throw it back over to you, because I know you know why. Well, why did they make this change, guess? Why is she now always on the bottom?
Chavez is now on her back because of 2 cards. And that's it. 2 cards. Because I'm combining 2 of them to make 1, which is the combination of Howard the Duck and Iron Lad as card number 1, because you're always going to be able, with Howard the Duck, to tap and see the next card up. And then Iron Lad, which will copy the ability of the top card in your deck blindly or via seeing it earlier with Howard the Duck. And then on top of that, you've got Jubilee, who's also been changed and would end up with an issue if the devs did not do this, which was they switched her from being just add a card to your deck to now being add the top card of your deck. So absolutely. As I see all of these changes, and I think to other games, and I think to what the devs have said, I think that this whole top of the deck thing has a lot of importance and has only further confirmed for me how important it's going to be to get Howard the Duck and Iron Lad, because we're seeing all these changes for top of the deck. We know these cards are coming. Like, I think as a knowledge piece for conquest mode coming up, like, these are going to be really big, important cards. And I think the fall of America Chavez will begin to happen because you're going to see a lot more people trying to figure out ways to play Cable and get Cable and use Cable. And then I'm excited.
But see here, like the whole Cable play, I feel like if you have Chavez in your deck, 90% of the time, you're probably okay with that. You have Chavez in there to thin your deck, so that it's
100%.
one less card to draw. Right. So it's one less card to draw. And so I feel like you're like, fine, take that card. That way I can still draw that Hail Mary pass on turn 6 that's not Chavez. But yeah, so over here, on the live side of this, we've got chat going on, and again, they're calling out exactly what we're saying. The future cards interacting with the top of your deck. This is something they've talked with, and again, coming from other games, coming from a game like Magic, one of the types of cards we don't have today is draw cards, right? Like we have Coulson, we have Agent 13, we have cards that give you random cards, but we don't really have a draw the top card of your deck, draw the next 2 card. Like there's maybe one card. Is there one card that lets you draw from the
Adam
top
Warlock?
Of your deck? Okay, Adam Warlock is the only one, and he's a bad draw card. Unless you're like basting him or something. Like it's not very good until like turn 4 when you may be drawing. But like I said, like there's not a ton of draw cards. Whereas in Magic and other games and stuff, that's a huge mechanic. And so if you look at, and I'm going to be nerdy for a second, and for anybody listening on the podcast that comes from TCGs, especially Magic, you'll understand this. But when you look at the older formats in Magic, you have cards like Sensei's Divining Top, which is Howard the Duck. It's look at the top card, and then of course it has another thing where you can put that card on top and draw that one into your hand. So I expect to start seeing those types of cards come up, as well as, play this card that's not so great, but draw the next 2 cards. Maybe it's discard cards from your hand, draw more cards. So again, a very common Magic mechanic that they can bring in here that maybe helps with Hela, that maybe helps with some of these other decks where you get to choose, or you get to do whatever of discard these 2, draw 2 more cards, and kind of cycle through that deck. And so again, I agree with you. I think we're going to see more and more of this interaction with the top of your deck, with Howard the Duck, with Iron Lad, which are already coming next month, as well as it opens up their space, which is kind of what they say in these notes. It opens up the space of what they can do in the game without being confined to cards like America Chavez stopping you because she messes with your deck, messes with the randomness of the cards that are coming up.
Very true. And then we had the other green guy, not Leech.
Yep.
Leader got refixed again and again and again
Leader's,
and again.
Leader's
and again.
back, baby. Leader's back, baby.
Leader is back. And I already have a headache because I'm so tired of Electro, Sandman, Leader, Odin.
Yeah.
I am already tired of it. And it's 2 days in. I'm seeing that so much. It's just like it's to the point where the second I get Sandman did, I'm just ready to just say, I have a cube, have fun, Merry Christmas. Like I get why they did it though with Leader though. I 100% get it. They needed to bring him back to a state where he actually has relevance, because his weird left eye confused, like, oh, it goes over here, but then only if it's in this lane, and then it's going to be a 6/7, but then it's going to copy if it's northwest, and then there's a star in the right sky, and like it was an awful mechanic. And now obviously it's very simple. It's a 6/2. They dropped his power tremendously, but now it's going to copy the enemy card or cards with the highest power.
He's back to what he was, right?
From that
turn. He was a 6/2 before.
Right. He was a 6/3, then 6/4, and then 6/3, and then 6/7, and now 6/2. So, but they changed the mechanic on the 6/7. And I don't mind being leadered as much as I mind being leeched, but it still doesn't feel good. But again, the deck I'm currently running is a lot of deck stacking, where as long as your lane is, their lane is full, you should be all right. So you gotta know how to prepare for the leader play if you're running into what's pretty much more often than not being the Sandman ramp version right now, which is what we're seeing. I felt like a version with him. Mini story. I felt like a complete noob though about it yesterday, because I had forgotten the old leader mechanic, and I was playing him to like figure it out and retest him. And I forgot, and let this be a lesson to my listeners before you embarrass yourself publicly like I did in somebody's stream, where if it's an on reveal effect that happens before and you leader a card that hasn't revealed next, you'll only get the unrevealed card. And what I mean by that
Right.
is if the opponent plays Shuri and then on turn 6 you play your leader and you end up leadering their Red Skull, you're going to copy their unrevealed Red Skull at 13 power. But if you reveal second, you will copy their 26 power Red Skull, not the 13 power Red Skull. Or sorry, 12 and 24. I forgot it was changed. But I had completely forgotten that. I learned that the hard way on stream. I talked about it in somebody else's stream and was like, yeah, dude, that's what it was beforehand. Because that's how much leader I played, because I absolutely hated him. I absolutely hated leader because I hated being that kind of a toxic player. And at the time, leader was incredibly toxic, so I did not use him really that much. I had completely forgotten that mechanic. So let that be a lesson to all the rest of the community that don't remember or just are newer into the game. Don't make the same mistake I did, and then more importantly, don't talk about it until you actually really realize, oh yeah, that's what it was beforehand.
Yeah, so there's a couple interactions with leader. So yes, I am 100% playing leader at the moment. I'm playing it in a death wave deck.
Oh,
which is even better. Which is even better than the Odin play, because I even beat the Odin one. And it was funny because they played their leader. They played like Doom. I forget exactly what they did. They played a leader or something like that on 4. So maybe like we waved on 3, then they played their leader. And I played my leader or something like that. And so I copied his leader. It was really weird. But then he played Doom on 5, and then he played Odin on 6. But somehow the way he did it, somehow I got his Odin. Anyway, bad story. But I won.
You're really good at this. You're really good at this. I'm glad you're here.
Maybe I didn't leader. Maybe I didn't leader earlier. They leadered earlier. Oh, I got it. When I waved, they leadered, I arrowed. And then from there, I leadered on 6. And where I leadered, copied his Odin to also like
proc another
re-trigger my arrow again, because I had
okay, and it
Fist
removed.
Tower. Yeah, I had Fist Tower, and so I kept pulling their stuff and destroying it as they were doing it. So it was pretty epic.
Straight shot
against there. But the other thing to kind of point out, because I also saw this conversation with Jeff, so I know we're about to transition to talk about Jeff and just a few and a little bit with a new card coming in. But when you talk about leader copying the way the cards copy, remember they're also copying the cards as they are. They are not replaying the cards. So when you have something like Jeff on a lane that's Professor X, and you go to try to use your leader, you will not get the Jeff, because you're not getting the ability on the card to play into a lane that can't be played in. You're just trying to make a copy. Your side, Professor X, is locked down. It will not make a copy. So those are some of those things just you have to remember with leader. Now that he's coming back into the meta, he does have some nuanced interactions that you just have to remember when you're using them or going against them. Either way, trying to take advantage of going against them.
Very true. Very, very true. I think you're going to see a lot more of him for a little while. And I can't wait for people to be distracted by the shiny objects in the second half next month, so that way they stop playing them. Because, then there was a whole bunch of bug fixes, little things here and there. I'm not going to go into a crazy amount of detail with any of these. They just, they're bug fixes. I mean, they are what they are. There's nothing 911 in here that I kind of said, oh, this is super important to need to know. It's like, we fixed this music issue, and we fixed this, and we fixed this. I'm still sad that they haven't fixed, at least for the PC client, the sound issue with Baxter Building, because that just absolutely breaks every time I'm in it. It's just like you hear that as a continuous loop. They haven't fixed that one yet, but lots of other little random doodads, But I'm just glad to see the list of bug fixes, because it means they've been acknowledged. And the giant list of it that they also have then down below for the known issues that they're working on. It's just a continuous, like,
transparency, which is
yeah,
huge in what we need
big
from
transparency.
devs and games.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I agree with you. You kind of gave a little forecast to the future, which is talking about Jeff the Baby Land Shark. Do you have Jeff?
I do have Jeff, but I'm not going to lie. I've not played him yet because I was trying to get the Infinite on the deck I was using. I know you've been using a Jeff deck that you enjoy, but I have watched a lot of videos, streams, as well as in the creator group. Tons of people are talking about him in the first, 30 seconds of his launch and what they have found with Jeff. But overall, I mean, looking like a strong card. A lot of people are using them, especially with, the Professor X locked out decks and stuff like that. But I know you've been using a Jeff deck. What are your thoughts so far on Jeff? Is he worth the 6,000 tokens at this point?
Currently, I think so now. I do. I think that Jeff is worth it. I think he was a smart investment. I was very reserved. I mean, I talked about it here. I just wasn't sold on Jeff. I'm like, he's a 2/3. It's like, yes, it's a nuanced little mechanic with him. Like, okay, he can move into certain places that you normally couldn't. How game breaking is that? And in a world full of Sandman, Jeff comes to survive. And he does. He really helps. That little extra power at certain times and in certain places really is a lot more valuable than I realized. Going up against, Patriot that runs Storm and then Juggernaut. Well, okay, boom, Silver Surfer. There's that counter in there. As I talked about with Shuri, knowing that Shuri's going to play in there and I play Professor X, I can play Professor X into a lane I'm losing and then move or play Jeff into that lane and win that lane. And they can't do pretty much anything about it. Like, he is surprising me left and right. I am, I have a mini goal between today and tomorrow to see if I can get Jeff to Infinite now, because it would be amazing to make that claim, not gonna lie, to say I took Jeff to Infinite from 70. And from 60, from 60. I started at 60 and started climbing with Jeff after testing a couple of different Jeff decks, which I put into the video that I put out today, and was like, okay, I like this. This is okay. This is almost okay. And I settled on this Jeff deck with a Tuma that I just absolutely love, because you don't know what's going to happen in the deck. There's too much left and right, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it because it is different. It is keeping up with the meta, playing cards that I haven't necessarily got to play for a little while. Professor X is fun, but only very specific decks rock him. And I mean, I even started making a semi-meme deck where I'm calling it Stop Jeff Time, because it's a Heimdall deck mixed with Professor X. Because Jeff allows me to make that kind of a deck, as weird as that sounds, but it works. And like, he's reinvigorated me a little bit the last 24 hours of being able to use him. And I would say, at least within the current metagame of so much Sandman, that Jeff has a place. He definitely has a home.
And then for the podcast, if you guys haven't seen Jeff, haven't really looked at him again, he should be in your highlighted, spotlighted card. So you should be able to at least see him in the shop for the next week. But essentially, you can move him once. So after you play him, you can move him once. So think of Nightcrawler. But nothing can stop you from moving or playing this card at any location. So locations like Kiln, after it's locked down, you can still move them over there. The Void on turn 6, you can move them in there, which isn't too much. But other locations like Space Throne. So Space Throne says only one card can be here. Jeff can be your second card there. Now he needs to be your second card, so you got to think through that a little bit. But like Guess was saying, if you've got a lockdown Professor X lane, you can play into it or you can move Jeff into it. So there's a lot of those times where you cross your fingers if you don't have a Daredevil, right? You cross your fingers, you throw down your Professor X, and you hope they don't drop another card there. Maybe at this point you're off by 2 power, something like that. You can move Jeff over there, or you can play Jeff into it. Go ahead and lock that one down. So he's got a lot of uses. And to Guest's point, I mean, he is a 2/3. So he's not going to be like that 10 power, I'm going to beat you at the end, but he has that little bit of extra to make you feel good, to know that you can, take care of that. So
removes that, oh wow, I'm stuck limitation. He gives you just enough flex. Just enough. And it's fun. It's fun. It's like I said, it's just really reinvigorated me. And
exactly.
I never thought that. Looking at him, hearing about him, yes, let's be honest, he's really cute. He is a jet. He's super duper
I need to get the Dan Hip version. I need to get the Dan Hip version, and I will be on the cute train. But no, I agree with you. I think he's a really cool card, and I also think, here's the other thing I'll throw out there. I don't know why I see this, but I see this on the Facebook groups a lot, and people are like, oh, they're running out of cards. They're randomly picking stuff, and I'm like, they're not. Marvel has 1 million characters they can use.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that they're picking these random cards. Sure, we're still missing some X-Men, we're still missing some random Avengers and things like that in the game, but here's the thing. They're also finding these awesome characters, which is cool to me, because then people are like, who is Jeff? Oh, let me go do a little research. This is really cool. That's who Jeff is. That's who these characters are. And I think it's cool that they're reaching out for a lot of these, especially this month kind of being all about pets. And then again, next month, we're going to see some cool stuff. And then, future month, which I'm sure we'll be talking about on the next podcast, with the other spoiled cards that just dropped for June. So a lot of cool stuff. And I love Jeff. I love the mechanic. Ready to see what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised with Jeff. I was not expecting him to be as good or as fun as he is, and he absolutely is. Is he worth 6,000 tokens? My recommendation for people who have gotten Jeff, or are thinking about, I should say, getting Jeff, understand this. At the moment, he's got maybe 3 or 4 different decks that he kind of slots into. He has a bigger impact in certain decks versus others, but more so, I think he's important right now in the current game state. So if you're trying to be competitive with Jeff in the current game state, because you're going up against a lot of Sandman decks, yes, he has some importance, and he's worth 6,000 tokens. But in my opinion, come May, whole nother ball game. So if you're going to invest into Jeff, my advice is invest before, invest within the next week of the launch of this podcast. If you have the tokens, do it, and then use them, and you're going to enjoy the hell out of it, even into the first week of May. But once the new cards start coming, I'm not talking about Nebula, I'm talking about Howard the Duck, Iron Lad, High Evolutionary, and Jesus.
Living Tribunal.
Thank you, Living Tribunal. I had a total brain fart there. Once those cards start showing up, it's going to be all about them, and the whole metagame's going to change, and there's going to be more OTAs between now and then.
Yeah.
So if you have the chance to get Jeff, I would say do it, but only do it in the next week. Otherwise, wait till he's Series 4.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say, if you're one of those people that you get tokens like once every 2 or 3 months, I would say he's a pass. So if you're a person that you can usually afford a card per month, then it's probably worth grabbing Jeff. He's, again, a fun card. You're not going to be missing out, in my opinion. You're not going to be missing out on Stegron and the other cards this month. But definitely, like Guess said, I think next month we're going to have a big month for cards. I think all 4 of those cards are going to be really good. And I think that there's potential, like your Howard the Duck plus Iron Lad really starts to shape a new deck. And maybe the rise of Red Skull. not Red Skull, Super Scroll, and then
yeah,
the following whatever week or whatever, when you get High Evolutionary, I think you're gonna have another big new deck hitting the meta around him. So I agree. I
yep.
think Jeff's a fun card. If you've got the tokens, if you're pretty good about getting one card a month with tokens, 6,000 tokens, go ahead, get him, try him out. I think he's gonna be pretty good in a lot of decks, but definitely if you're a little slower on that, wait till next month.
Yeah, I think just remember this. This is another backside, looking at the data mines and looking at information coming out. Remember this combination too when it comes into May. The reason we're going to see all of these cards is because, number one, we just had the Kitty Pride compensation come through this week. So a lot of players who got Kitty Pride had 8,000 tokens just refunded back to them, and a lot of them are holding on to those. Plus, there is a data mined tokens pack that will consist of 10,000 collector's tokens. So if you are someone who has had a lot of collector's tokens in the past and someone who invests into the game especially, you have potentially on the horizon 18,000 tokens. That's 3 cards right there.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal. And I think that's why May is going to be so special for Marvel Snap, because it's going to have a very big impact on ladder. We'll have Conquest up and running, hopefully very shortly after, and hopefully we'll get some like teaser gameplay and information, and we can start, practicing in battle mode a little bit differently now because of these cards. Like there's all these other tournaments, obviously, like the Snap Fan Open again coming in May. There's so many different things coming, so many.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that Jeff was worth it. I'm glad that Shuri's dead. I think she's good, but she's still dead. Let's just call it what it is. I think I'm okay with Leader being back. He's a little annoying, but I think I'm okay with him being back. The last 48 hours of Marvel Snap have completely changed Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
Plain in a good way. Yeah.
In a good way.
Exactly. In a good way. In a very, very good way. I think it's really healthy for the game, everything that they've done and that they've said and that they followed through. And I didn't get to, have the full experience I wanted to, but I also want to, wrap up the podcast with a congratulations to Ben Brode for taking down Shroud in their matchups today. I'm going to go watching the full playback so I can talk in more detail about it, ideally, potentially for Monday, because I saw some of the decks that he was running and why, and even he obtained Shroud obtained Jeff that day. I didn't realize he was as big of a Marvel Snap player as he is. He knew things. He wasn't just like, oh, this is shiny. No, he actually plays the game. I'm like, that was quite cool.
And he had cards like Nimrod, which means he had the season pass last month. So it wasn't like he just was handed an account or anything like that. So he's been playing. So.
Yeah, he's definitely been playing. So it was it was cool. It was really, really cool. I'm not gonna lie. So do you have anything else that you want to touch before we wrap up this episode, my friend?
No, again, I'm loving where the meta's at right now. I'm interested to see over the next week what we're going to see. We've definitely seen the rise of Leader back in there. We're seeing the fall of Shuri. Again, deck still works, just works slightly different. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, definitely at this point, the Sandman meta is everywhere because of Hitmonkey. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad the patch notes looked great. All the different pieces in them. So no complaints there. And yeah, can't wait to talk Monday as we see what happens over the weekend and all the other stuff coming in. So
it should be a lot of fun. DefaultDan is, you're just, you're awesome. And I'm jealous of your beard. Still jealous of the beard. Considering I'm next week I'm shaving mine off because of the community challenge. So the hair, all the hair, the top hair and the beard hair, all gone. So I'll be clean shaven for the first time in years, and I'm just envious of the beard. So I might wear a hat on the next pod for the video side of the podcast. But if you do not know DefaultDan, you need to know DefaultDan. So where can they get to know you, good sir?
Yeah, so you can get to know me over on YouTube, youtube.com/defaultdan, on Twitch, where we do these things live on Mondays, and you can come hang out with us at twitch.tv/defaultdan. And also, I hang out over on the official snap.fan Twitch. So we're going to be doing more of that throughout the week with some smaller tournaments that we kind of announced the other day, as well as the big open. So if you want to find that, it's twitch.tv/snap.fan, and that's all spelled out one word. So come hang out with us over there. And again, it's a ton of fun. Love hanging out with you, guest. And I love, doing these podcasts as well as getting you on more of that snap.fan stuff as the casting of the tournaments and stuff.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait to do it again. I'm already trying to figure out, okay, take this weekend, set it aside, take this weekend, set it aside. Just open up the gap, hope for the best, and say, okay, it's going to be that date, because we don't know what the date is yet. Yeah. So fingers crossed, I will be available to cast again for it and be here on the back end. But if you want to come hang out with me, you can find me over at twitch.tv/ItsGuestGaming, streaming typically about 4 times a week. Put out lots of YouTube content also at the same name, It's Guest Gaming. Find me over on Twitter, Discord, and all of the fun social media sites. This, once again, ladies and gentlemen, is the Snapback Podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Say goodbye.
See ya. Bye. See ya.
Who's squeezing you? What happened there?
I don't know.
I just complimented your beard.
Going.
Well, yeah, I'm hesitant because you haven't nailed an outro in like 3-4 episodes. Like, I'm scared for you.
See you later, guys. Till next time. I'll be right here. Y'all come back, y'all.
No.